We are not doctors. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as medical advice. Consult your physician before starting any workout routine. This is the Martial Heart Podcast.
Hey, everybody. How are you? The transition's getting better anyway. It's not quite as abrupt. I still have to work on something on that. I don't know what to do with it. Anyhow, I got the little fake fireplace playing in the background, so everybody should be in a holiday mood because of that. So anyway, I wanted to fill everybody in on what happened this week because there was cardiac rehab, there was, of course, work, there was other things, but there was also a visit with my family physician, and he went through everything. He went over all of my records. He went over my medications, my latest blood work, my imaging stuff from whenever, and he has decided that there's really no reason why I can't return to the things that I love to do, with some caveats. So, sorry, I have to turn up my headphones a little bit. So there was a brief pause, but the caveats are start slow, work my way into it slowly. Don't go crazy. Don't throw myself in 100% right off the bat. Yes, I've been doing cardio exercises, and I'm cardiovascularly as far as my health is concerned, and my physical capability, I guess you would say, fully capable of doing it, but he wants me to slowly integrate that back into my life instead of just jumping right in, so that make sure that my body adjusts to the new levels of activity, the new types of activity, without freaking out. And we'll be able to see if there's going to be any negative effect because of the different type of activity. It's going to be a different type of cardio exercise than what I'm used to. That what I do now is very consistent. You start at this level and it stays there, and you just sort of do that level. You maintain your heart rate at that level for the 30-minute period. And karate and jiu-jitsu training don't work that way. There are periods of not very much activity at all. There's periods of inactivity. And then there are periods of excessive activity where we do some fun things in karate class, like lining up, and then everybody does a couple of kicks on the heavy bag or something, and then you rotate out. And then they'll have like 2 or 3 different wave masters in there. If you don't know what a wave master is, it's a heavy bag that's sitting on top of a giant container that you can fill with water or sand. I think originally they called it the Wave Master because they were intended to be filled with water, but a lot of people started filling them with sand. So it holds the bag stable for the most part. I have one in my basement in my little home gym, and I can kick it over. Mine is full of water, but it's a smaller one. It's a medium size one. It's not a XXL, but we also sometimes have little competitions and seeing who's going to kick it over at karate class. And I think I kick it over typically, and there's a couple of other people who are pretty good at doing that. And it's really all about, having a proper technique is what it's about. It's not always about strength in martial arts. And you may have heard that a lot over the years, and not having any kind of reference for it. But a lot of martial arts will tell you it's not about strength. It's about technique and all this other stuff. And in some cases, it's actually true. A small person who isn't extraordinarily strong, can be taught how to perform a kick that will be strong enough to kick over an extra large Wave Master heavy bag, or to break 3 or 4 boards. So in a lot of cases, it is the technique as opposed to just raw strength, because you have to know where to hit the bag. You have to know how the depth that you're aiming for when you hit the bag, and you have to have proper momentum and proper technique. And anyway, there's a lot involved. So it's not always about strength. Sometimes it's just about technique. And jiu-jitsu can be the same way. It's not necessarily about strength. Like if you're doing a rear naked choke on someone, It isn't necessarily about how strongly you're squeezing that person with your muscles, with your strength. It's about where your arms are positioned and whether or not you're in the correct position to cut off the blood flow to the poor person's brain. Because that's what happens. That's what choke. That's how chokes work. If you didn't know that, that's how chokes work. Well, science for you. Chokes work by cutting off the blood flow to your brain. And so it's fun. We all have fun doing that. But, so the activity is different. There is some cardio. I mean, I would say karate has more cardio involved than jiu-jitsu does. But jiu-jitsu's cardio is, it's almost like short, spurts of exertion that involves cardio. And karate, depending on if you're doing kata, if you're going to do kata practice, working on your forms for half an hour, that can get to be cardio. I generally work up a pretty good sweat whenever I'm doing that because there's a lot involved in making your technique look sharp and crisp, and it involves a lot of muscle control and dynamic tension of your body to hold your body still to make it look good. Because the whole idea of having a kata demonstration is for it to look good. You're practicing basic techniques, sometimes advanced techniques, with imaginary opponents is essentially what a kata is. And they're pre-planned, they're pre-designed, and they've been in existence for a very, very long time. A lot of different martial arts use the same kata. They'll name them something different. They'll alter them a little bit to suit that style of karate or taekwondo. But there are probably a dozen different martial arts, different types of karate or taekwondo that utilize, like, let's say 10 of the same kata or forms in their martial art that they practice. And taekwondo will do them differently than a karate style will do them. And it's all depending on the style and how that developed and the philosophy behind that. But they're still essentially using the same kata. And if you do it right, and if you do it, hardcore kata practice, you're going to work up a sweat. There's a little bit of cardio involved there because you're moving, you're kicking, you're punching into the air and stopping those techniques from continuing and maintaining your balance and stuff like that. And if you're doing the run around, circular type training where you're attacking this bag and then go to the next stage and do that and then go to the next stage, you can get a pretty good workout from it. But jiu-jitsu is a little bit different where you're utilizing probably considerably less cardio. Your cardio comes from your keeping people off of you is one of the ways that you're expending your cardio or trying to survive while you're just laying on the bottom. But you're going to have explosive type techniques in jiu-jitsu, and otherwise it's more of a flowing kind of maneuvering, and I'm going to try to move this person that way, and he's going to be trying to move me this way, and he's trying to get to the back, and I'm trying to prevent him from doing that. So it's more like a kind of a tug-of-war type of activity, and then there's going to be like spurts and explosions of energy because you see the technique there and it's available, and so you want to jump on it. So you're going to have that explosive type of energy, or you get the person off balance and you have like a half of a second or a quarter of a second to see it, and so then you can explode and perform the technique and do the sweep or whatever, or takedown, or whatever technique you're trying to do. So it's a little bit different as far as the types of exercise you're going to get. So the cardio that I've been doing should be adequate and appropriate for both of those. I should have proper cardio currently, just because I've been doing it for weeks now and have gotten myself basically back into good cardiovascular condition where I can expend energy. But it's a little bit different, so it might take me a while to get used to that. I'm going to still have to keep doing the regular cardio. Basically, they want you to do it every day, 30 minutes every day, so we're going to see how that goes. But I figure on the days that I'm doing karate or jiu-jitsu, I shouldn't have to do that because I'm going to be getting adequate exercise. Classes are an hour long, and it should be enough, but I may have to go home and get on the treadmill for half an hour or something after class. I guess it's going to depend on how much of a workout I got during class. But I have one more appointment, and that's on Tuesday morning. I'm going back to see the cardiologist, and we're going to get their opinion on where I stand and going back to some martial arts training. And if I get the sign off from them, I only have 5 or 6 visits left in cardiac rehab, which will probably take me through to the end of the year. And then January, I would be looking to return to a class. And I'm kind of unsure of which way I want to go. I think I can pay a drop-in fee and just go to a jiu-jitsu class whenever I feel up to it, like once a week or something, until I realize that I'm capable of doing this. I don't know if we can do a drop-in fee type thing for karate classes. So one way or the other, I have to get back into one class and test myself there and see what happens. And I was really thinking the other day that I might actually start back into karate instead of jiu-jitsu, even though I really enjoy jiu-jitsu. And I like the training, and I like the whole process of it. And, I miss the guys because, we have a lot of fun. But karate class is fun too. But the thing about karate class was that I was getting ready to test for my next belt. So I missed it when I had to leave classes, and then, because I had the hip problem and I couldn't do the things that I needed to do. And then I had the heart attack and everything. But I was practicing all the stuff necessary to get my purple belt in Shotokan. And I was getting ready to test for that. So I might go back and train back up again, and so I can get my purple belt and then move on from there. I don't know. In that school, it's purple, brown, red, and then black. So they put a red belt in between the normal progression. Back in the old days, it would have been purple, brown, and black. But at some point, a lot of American martial arts organizations came up with a red belt, and they put it in different places. So some of them put it near the end of your journey to black belt, and some of them put it closer to the beginning or somewhere in the middle. So in our school, red belt comes between brown and black. And each one of those belts has 2 levels. So you have a level 1 and a level 2. A level 2 involves having a black stripe down the middle of your belt. And so technically, you would be, with a purple belt, you would be 3 belts away from black, but there's 2 levels on each one, so you would be 6 levels away. Anyway, it can be complicated. A lot of the older martial arts, like Okinawan Goju, when I studied Okinawan karate, Goju-ryu, there were only 4 belts. There was white, green, brown, and black. That was it. And each one of those belts had 3 levels. So you had, 24, what would that be? I don't even know. So there would be 12 belts, I guess. I don't know, because you also have the other one that's just the belt. So basically there would be 4 levels to each belt. So yeah, 16. 16 levels, I guess. And if I'm doing the math wrong, because math is not my thing. If I got that wrong, straighten me out in the comments, because I'm not going to try again and figure it out. But you would have, you would start as a white belt, and then you would get your 1, 2, and then your 3rd stripe on your white belt. And then you would be a green belt. And then at green belt, you would get your 1, 2, and 3 stripes on your green belt. So there's 4 levels at each belt. So to get to black, you would only have 12 belts, I guess. And then your next belt would be black. And then you would have whatever levels of black. And black belt in different martial arts is different things. They have different levels. They call them dans in the traditional karate schools. in, I forget what they call them in Taekwondo, but each level you get your black belt. And then your next one, you get a single stripe on your black belt, and you're a second degree black belt. With 2 stripes, you're a third degree. So, there's always that underlying belt color. That's your first, degree. And then each stripe after that amounts to your next level. So, the master's belts, the grandmaster and all, everything is different from what it used to be in the old days. In the old days, each style of martial art had a grandmaster, and that was a 10th degree black belt. That was the person at the top of the pyramid. And they controlled how the martial art was taught, how it progressed, its future, and trained their successors to come up, and they would choose a successor. Typically, they would have like 2 or 3 top students who would stay with them all the time, and they would learn the things from the grandmaster, and one of them would become the grandmaster whenever that person retired or passed away or whatever. And all the other ranks underneath were below 10th because there was only one 10th degree black belt. Well, that's not how they do it anymore. Now everybody wants to be a 10th degree, and I've seen some things where the person has a 12th degree black belt. There is no such thing. That doesn't exist. It never did. Anyway, they're making things up now, and it's just absurd. It's just a bunch of crap. And so it doesn't really mean anything anymore, because after a certain level, your belt becomes a sort of, what would you call it? It becomes ceremonial anyway. It's an honorarium. No, an honorarium is money. It's just an honorary kind of thing. And you're a 5th degree black belt. That's a master's level belt in some martial arts, and some it's not. In Taekwondo, it used to not be. You didn't have a master's belt until you were a 7th degree black belt. Like when I studied under Master Jack Hong in Oklahoma City back in the late 70s, early 80s, he was a 7th degree black belt in Taekwondo. And at the time, if I remember correctly, he was the highest ranking Taekwondo black belt in the United States. And then, of course, people started saying, well, I'm an 8th degree and a 9th degree and a this and a that. And it was all things that didn't exist. So Jack Hong's rank was legitimate. So he later became Grandmaster Jack Hong. He held a Grandmaster's belt. And so anyhow, it's all different now, and you can't keep track of it. So you can't put any value toward any of it, because some schools are going to be giving belts away. Some schools are going to make it virtually impossible for you to get your next belt. Both of them have a strategy for getting the most money out of their students. One strategy is don't promote them and make them stay longer at each belt rank, and until they can achieve the next one. Well, the other one is promote them often and keep them encouraged, and then they come back because they're pursuing that next belt rank. And if you promote them often enough, then that will keep them encouraged to maintain their motivation for coming back, and it's still attending classes. And that's why some martial arts have 16, 17, 18 different belt levels now, whereas really traditionally in the old days there were 4. But that's because they want you to, stay motivated, stay interested. And, the Americans in particular don't do well with discipline and patience, things like that. So you have to come up with other ways to keep them interested in their art until they reach a certain level of maturity to where they actually are doing it because they need to do it. If that makes any sense. There's a difference between doing something because you want to do it and doing it because your friends do it, and maybe even doing it because it's fun, because there are certain levels of interest in things where you actually have a need to do it. And that's kind of what my love affair, my love-hate relationship with martial arts has been throughout my whole life. I've always had a need to do it. And I think it's because I had those experiences as a younger person when I was 10, 11 years old that made me enjoy it. And I had the benefit of having great instructors. I had really legitimately one of the most respected Taekwondo instructors on earth, in Grandmaster Jack Hong. And his instructors underneath him were all third, fourth, fifth degree black belts who had trained in traditional Taekwondo. This wasn't sport Taekwondo. This wasn't Olympic style Taekwondo. This was traditional, like military Taekwondo. Jack Hong had been a commando back during during the Korean War, fighting for South Korea during the Korean War, and so he had a very strict sense of, this is not a game. This is not. This isn't a sport. This is a martial art. This is an art about war, and I'm going to teach you how to win the war. And his instructors took that mentality. And I'm talking about, 79, 80, 81. So it was a long time ago. How it turned out after that, I don't know. I moved away from Oklahoma, a few years later. And so I don't know what the school wound up being like. I don't know what it's like now. But I know that back then, we had some very interesting instructors, and they had a very clear vision of what their martial art was. And it was hardcore. And if you didn't do it right, you were told you weren't doing it right. And I see people now at different belt, like, oh, you're going for your green belt, your purple belt, your brown belt. Oh, now you have to break a board. We were doing that when we were white belts. We were breaking boards at white belt. And because it's not about the show of putting on, breaking a single pine board that's 1 inch thick. It's about, you can't do it unless you use proper technique. That's what it was about for us. It wasn't about, oh, I'm going to show you how to do this circus, sideshow trick where you break this board with your fist. It wasn't really about breaking the board. It was about, you can't break the board unless you use proper technique. And if you don't use proper technique, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt enough that you may remember how to do the proper technique. So at 11 years old, learning that I could hit this piece of wood and shatter it into two pieces was a tremendous boost to my confidence. And that's what works for a lot of American kids, is you have to keep instilling them with confidence and giving them goals and letting them accomplish those goals. And, they develop a love for this thing. And people do it a lot of times. My parents weren't like this at all, but a lot of parents push their kids too hard. I don't know if the parent is trying to relive their glory days or the days that they did not have as a youth, and they're trying to live vicariously through their child, and their child has a little bit of talent in basketball or football or baseball or whatever. And so they start pushing this kid to, continue to hone their craft and trying to make a sport their life and their lifestyle, and making this sport their possible employment and their income. And I think parents are wrong with that, because it doesn't necessarily mean just because the kid's good at it doesn't mean he loves doing it. And if he doesn't love it, he's eventually going to give it up, or he's going to resent you for making him go. And so martial arts never had any of those weird feelings for me. It was always just, as soon as I started doing it, I was in love with it. And that's why I'm like an encyclopedia of martial arts and martial art history. And it's really, really weird and probably pretty pathetic. But I actually have books on martial arts history and going back into ancient history and the different styles and their founding and the people involved. And I love all that stuff. I love all the history. And so I became like a martial arts nerd, where I knew all this stuff. And, that doesn't mean that I'm like, ooh, I'm an exceptional martial artist. It just means I know a lot about it. It's like, somebody can know an awful lot about basketball. It doesn't mean they're good at playing basketball. I can do a kata. I can hold my own. I can spar. I can do some stuff. I can still break a board or two. I had to break two for the last belt test I did. There were two. But anyway, it's all part of the game. And, so, it's, I don't know, there's, you have to love it to do it. And I've always just had this love for it. And if there were 7 different martial arts schools here in my town, and I could afford to go to a martial arts class once a week at each one of them, I would go to all of them. I'd be studying kung fu and jujitsu and karate and taekwondo and sambo or whatever else was going on. I'd be doing it because it's fun. I just enjoy it. And it was always something that augmented my training and abilities as a soldier too, because we did hand-to-hand combat training, we did combatives training. So martial arts training just sort of took, it gave me more items in my arsenal for that as well. So when I was working a job where I had to arrest people and where I had to wrestle people around and subdue people and was doing something physical all the time, martial arts, along with military hand-to-hand combat and all those things, because there's a lot of similarities there, gave me additional things in my arsenal that I could use in order to protect myself and actually protect the other person as well, because the goal wasn't to injure people. It was just to subdue them and get them under control and get them into custody and things like that. So there were a few people who got injured a little more than probably was necessary, but they deserved it. But that love and that interest in that just started when I was really, really young. And so if you can get your kids interested in things like that when they're really young, if it takes, it takes. I knew a lot of youngsters back then who went to classes for a month or two, and then they were nah, it wasn't for them. They didn't want to stick it out. So, but as far as belts, that's how they deal with the American mindset of constantly needing to achieve something. They just add a bunch more belts in there, and there are some very funny quotes from people like Bruce Lee or from the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi. The belts it didn't mean anything. It was just a way to hold your pants up. It was traditionally, historically, that's kind of true. The belts got darker because they were getting dirtier. That's what, and that's my understanding of the history. I could be a little fuzzy on that, but everybody wore a white belt in the beginning, and the belt just kept getting darker because it kept getting dirtier, because you never washed your belt. There was some sort of a tradition about not washing the belt or something. I might have to look that up again, but that's how the belt got darker and darker to a different color and wound up being more or less black or a dark gray or whatever. It was because it was dirty. And it had nothing to do with, and then somehow that grew into a tradition of, oh, you're at this level, so we're going to do this and do that. And there's still, to this day, there's some people who don't wash their belts. And I do, because I don't like anything on me smelling like a sweaty sock. And all of that stuff will eventually, if you don't wash it, including your belt, because you're sweating through that belt just like you are your gi. If you're doing it right, you're sweating all over everything. I sweat a lot. So anybody who's grappled with me can attest to that. I sweat a lot. So, but anyhow, I got off topic. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm going to start going back, and I haven't decided if I'm going to go back to karate first or jujitsu first. The karate thing is enticing because I was so close to testing for my next belt. I think maybe I'll just go back and get my purple belt. And it'll be like my third purple belt, I think. I've studied so many different martial arts in so many different schools in different states and stuff that I have different colored belts from different like styles of taekwondo and karate and different things. And it's kind of funny. I think it would be my third time getting a purple belt in a style of karate. But anyhow, it's irrelevant. But it's enticing, where I might need to do that. I might have to get that goal taken care of before I start deciding to go back into jiu-jitsu. I have 2 stripes on a white belt in jiu-jitsu. Typically, it goes up to 4 stripes on a white belt before you start, looking at blue belt, I guess. So I'm a ways away from making blue belt, even though I did it for like 3 years or something. But progressing in jiu-jitsu when you're only doing it 1 or 2 days a week is a very slow process. So that's how many classes we have every week is 2. I don't know if they've added any since then, but If you can go to 4 or 5 classes a week, you're going to progress a lot faster, of course, because it's all just about math at that point and how fast you learn and how well you retain those things. So, I'm not in as much of a hurry in jiu-jitsu to get that belt out of the way because I know I'm still a ways away from getting a blue belt. And it's probably going to take another year or two before I could even think, I might be getting my blue belt soon, because I have a long way to go. But in karate, it's pretty much, I just need to learn a couple of katas and refresh my memory on a couple of things, and I can get to my next belt. And anyway, that might be my approach. We'll see. And it would probably injure me less initially. So, because we don't do as much hand to hand, fist on fist or anything like that in karate class. And we're definitely not rolling around on the ground, squashing each other and trying to choke each other out. And while I'm on these blood thinners, I'm going to bruise very easily. So there is the potential that if somebody gets me in a good choke and squeezes down, even whether I tap or not, I might be bruised all the way around my neck for a week. And my face is going to bruise up easily and all of that, and it just might be terrible. I might look like I just got mugged every day. So it might be a good idea to start a little easier in karate class and not have so many visible injuries all the time right at first, until I get back in the swing of things fully. But I was a dual track student before I was doing karate and jiu-jitsu, and eventually I would like to get back to that, so that I'm doing both, because I really do enjoy both. And I can't say I have a preference one over the other. I like doing them both. So maybe I'll keep doing both of them. But I have to talk to the cardiologist on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? Pretty sure it's Tuesday. Tuesday morning. And I'll be going to work after that. So, because it's first thing in the morning. Then I'll be heading to work. So I'll have cardiac rehab when I get home from work. If I have time before cardiac rehab, or I'll do it afterward. If not, I will update everybody. I'll make sure to update everybody on Tuesday to let them know what the cardiologist had to say. He seemed to be the one in the past who was a little less positive about whether I should go do some jiu-jitsu or karate. I don't know if he was as optimistic about things as I am and as my family physician is. So we just have to wait and see what he has to say on Tuesday. And I just had blood work done today, more blood work. I've had pints of blood sucked out of me since this heart attack thing happened, and because they're constantly doing blood work. And I went and had some more vials of my life's blood sucked out of me this morning, so that they'll have fresh blood work to look at for my appointment on Tuesday. And our lab is quick, probably before, let's see, what time is it? It's 11:38 right now, live while I'm recording this. Probably before 3 p.m., all those results from the blood I gave this morning will be up on the app, on my healthcare app, whatever it is, portal thing, because they're really quick about it here. So it works out pretty good. And you don't have to go, I have to make sure I go there 2 weeks before. They need 8 days to do it. You could do it like the same morning of an afternoon appointment, and they'll have the results. So I'm sure not always, but that's been my experience with them, is they're really quick. So I'm expecting by 3 o'clock this afternoon, I'll be able to look at the results myself and know if we're moving in the right direction, or if I can anticipate another medication change coming, which I hope not. I feel stable right now on the medications that I'm on. I'm comfortable. I'm not having weird reactions. I'm not having any negative effects from these medications that I'm currently taking. So I don't want there to be any changes. I kind of want it to stay this way, at least for the foreseeable future, because I'm stabilized and everything's cool right now. But anyhow, that's it. That's the update. It was good news from my doctor, so we'll see what the cardiologist has to say on Tuesday. And there I explained some of my strange love for the martial arts and why I have to do these things. I just have to do it, because I've had a lot of people say, you don't have to do that. You're getting old. You don't have to do that. I'm like, why? Why not? They're like, hey, take it easy. Take it easy. Don't work so hard. Don't put yourself in danger and physical harm and all that stuff. You're 57. It's time to calm down and relax. No, not doing it. I'm gonna die fighting. That's the way it's gonna happen. I don't plan on just laying down somewhere and expiring. No, I'm gonna fight this thing to the death, literally to the death. All right. Well, everybody, take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. It's really cold here, so stay bundled up. Don't get frostbite. That's stupid. I almost got frostbite once. I'll tell you that story maybe someday. But at least mine happened somewhere cool. It was in the Alps between Germany and Austria. And yeah, it was cool. It was still stupid, but it was cool. And if you get frostbite here, then you're just stupid. You're not even getting it in a cool place. You're just in your yard. So no fun. Don't do it. And I'll talk to everybody soon. Take care of yourselves. Eat right. Exercise. Get off your ass. Get on a treadmill or something. Take care.